Hey everyone, Chloe here, and welcome back to this feminine platform, and welcome back to this channel. And if you are new here, ladies and lurkers and ear hustlers, welcome. So I wanted to make a case study video and for this channel to have continued conversations on the very damaging effects of masculine mothers and to unpack the normalized dysfunction that has now become a source of continuous entertainment. Now, we all know about the devastating impacts of fatherlessness and men who abandon their children. And as I have always stated on this channel, that men who don't take care of their children will always have bad luck. And in spite of what you may believe about men who skirt their responsibility, every dog will have its day, and deadbeat fathers don't ever get to skip off into the sunset without suffering. And we don't have this conversation enough, but being a parent is a blessing that way too many people take advantage of because it is probably one of the hugest responsibilities in the world. But for a bit of house cleaning, because I know that the man-hating women who lurk on this channel are ear hustling and are chomping at the bit. But please do not try to deflect this very needed elevated conversation by playing the very predictable and the very boring tit-for-tat blame game, or by redirecting the blame of this particular narrative to Scrappy's father, who in this particular case was actually more of a positive overall influence in his life according to his words. This uncomfortable conversation is about damaging masculine mothers, and it is a conversation, and you can go argue with your wig, that requires a level of emotional maturity and emotional intelligence that, quite frankly, many of you are not ready or prepared for, and that is okay. But for a long time, for a very long time, damaging mothers have been put on an untouchable pedestal and have been able to hide behind the blame game narrative because for a very long time, everyone has always assumed that the parent that is stuck with the kid is by default the better parent. But in truth, toxic, unhealthy mothers who are often left stuck with the kids can be just as problematic as toxic fathers and as absentee fathers. And just because a mother got stuck with the kids doesn't mean that she automatically knows how to raise them or that she was equipped to handle the responsibility that comes with having to shape her son's masculinity or shaping her daughter's femininity. But gratefully, we are now in a time where both toxic fathers and now toxic mothers are being fully exposed. And I understand that this exposure does make a lot of single mothers and older baby boomers and Generation X Black women feel triggered, attacked, and feel some type of way. But this exposure is very necessary for healing and to break generational strongholds. Now, this very eye-watering and very unfortunate Love and Hip Hop Atlanta television scene between Scrappy, his mom, Mama D, and his wife, Bambi, is a conversation that can be unpacked in a million and one ways. But take a look and a listen for yourself.
I grew up in a whorehouse. I grew up in a trap house. So all I knew was that. You know what I'm saying? And I love you because you held it down and like you did what you had to do. But imagine you never had
child point of view.
You never had to sleep with your mama 24/7 because you couldn't go in your room.
Okay.
You never had to walk in on dope.
Yeah.
You never had to walk in on just you know what I'm saying? The way I was raised, I had to deal with that because everything that happened, I had to deal with that. And I'm still dealing with it because ain't nobody come and take me to give me no help. Ain't nobody got me no help. I learned about that when I got older.
Okay. So do you
know this real, cuz like this this in my head, my whole life, in my head. The I go through, I can't even go to her, she hard. I can't go to you hard. So I'm on the concrete, my granddaddy ain't that hard.
Wow. Now this scene, and rightfully so, went viral, and it sparked a very necessary conversation over at the Hive about masculine mothers and about the damaging effects that this harshness can have on both men and women. And here are some of the amazing comments. One woman wrote, "The part when he said he can't go to his wife too because she is hard is so sad. But the crazy thing is that he likely picked her because she reminded him of his hard mother." Another woman wrote, "I don't think any toxic moms like to admit that they were flawed. A lot of people are stuck in their ways. Being better requires intentionality and work. A lot of people aren't willing to do the work, even if it's at their children's expense. The fact that he can't even go to his wife is crazy though." Another commenter wrote, "Black women hold on to that masculine energy like it's an award. We are taught to be hard. It takes time to unlearn it. I would be so hurt to know I'm not my husband's soft spot. Many mothers destroy black men, but get the praise because they stayed. So much trauma in that man's life, you just have to hope he doesn't repeat it. To his line, we all need healing. And finally, another commenter wrote, I think in this case, both are true at the same time. This woman wasn't in a situation to rest in her femininity and nurture that boy. She did what she thought she had to do at that time, and it affects him to this day. Which is why when we get older and obtain enough self-awareness to realize what hounds us, get therapy and talk to someone. As an adult, it is your responsibility to take care of yourself in all aspects. And lastly, masculine mothers can be doing the best that they can, but their best can also be destructive. Now, as I mentioned over at the Hive, and shout out to the Hive, my strongest takeaway from this video and from my feminine point of view, because of course one video cannot unpack the historical traumatizing mess that has happened between Scrappy and his reality TV personality, Mama D. But what stuck out the most to me was not only the deadpan, cold responses from both his mother and his wife. They both were stoic, numb, detached, and emotionally flat in this moment. But what stuck out to me the most was when Scrappy called both his wife and his mother hard. And hard as in meaning masculine, and hard as in not being able to rely on his wife or his mother for a soft landing place, which is absolutely devastating and debilitating for the masculine divine. This scene is obviously just one example out of many of the ongoing poverty and the Masculina status quo that many black women have had to adapt, have had to subscribe to, and have had to rely upon to survive. But unfortunately, this is the kind of out of the mud dysfunction that causes some serious permanent damage to both the psyche of men and women. And this damaging legacy and this arrested development and the consequences of this kind of neglect that comes from being raised in unhealthy environments is obviously reflected in a lot of the daily commentary in the podcast of both these broken men and broken women who continue to discuss these issues in a very shallow and a very surface and a very hollow and often unhelpful way, which is unfortunate. But wow, sorry to this man for having been raised in the absolute horrible nightmare of a garden tool house. But from my point of view, and this is from personal experience, it is the hardest thing for any black mother to ever admit that they were not the mother that their kids needed them to be. And this truth is a bitter pill for any neglectful, disconnected mother to swallow because it hits a nerve. It exposes our shame and it exposes the parts of themselves that they either don't have the courage to face, to look in the mirror at, or it just straight up exposes just how normalized their inner dysfunction has become. And now this dysfunction within black culture and pop culture in general is now being used as your regular, degular car crash entertainment. And we are even using the potentially damaging domestic violence situations of Bluetooth and Blueface to keep the masses entertained. Now, clearly in this scene with Scrappy and his mom, this man's inner child was crying to be heard. And it went right through one of Mama D's tone-deaf ears and out of the other, because she's unfortunately a woman herself who is very, very broken, disassociated, and who, in my opinion, at the very least, will need to clean up her spiritual hygiene. And perhaps her son's emotional pleas and her son's emotional admission will penetrate his mother's natural defense mechanisms. She won't be able to make amends to Scrappy or to give him the closure that he will need unless she can be honest with herself. But in this case, and in many cases where people can relate to this type of neglect, I wouldn't hold my breath, waiting on the person who damaged me to heal my pain or to fix my hurt. Because if they had the ability to fix the pain, the damage, and the hurt, they wouldn't have caused it in the first place. These traumatic instances are passed down as generational curses and are passed down as generational strongholds and patterns that are very, very, very difficult to break. But they must be broken to get to the other side of healing and to make sure that your potential bloodline or your kids or your adopted kids or your foster kids or you yourself are healed so that you aren't passing down these nasty emotional infections. For Scrappy, the grown man lesson to learn here, and for any man or woman who is listening, if you wait on a broken person to heal you, or if you are waiting for them to fix the pain that they caused you, you will be old and gray and mummified before that happens, which is why therapy and having a working relationship with a mental health professional, not your little friends, will always be the necessary game changer in evolving from dysfunction, as opposed to normalizing it and thinking that dysfunction is a kiki, haha, LMAO kind of joke. To my womanhood and manhood listeners, getting help is not embarrassing. It is not something that you should be ashamed of. Getting help is a part of life, because in life you cannot DIY everything. And the sooner that you get that lesson, the better. So ladies and lurkers, to get this conversation started, do masculine, domineering, or aggressive mothers destroy their sons? And their daughters are also a part of this conversation as well. Or are they doing the best with what they had and what was given to them? Can two things be true at the same time? And can you relate to being emotionally abandoned or to growing up in difficult circumstances? And finally, do fathers and sons need a soft place to land with their wives and girlfriends and mothers? And as always, stay tuned for more Feminine School videos to come, and I will catch up with you ladies and lurkers and ear hustlers in the next one.